They told me I should be grateful. That's what my son Jake said, standing in his kitchen, my old kitchen, technically, with his arms crossed and that look on his face. The one he'd been wearing since his wife Amanda started whispering in his ear about how they were doing us a favor by letting us stay in the guest house out back. The guest house, on the property I still owned. Dad, I'm just saying, you and Mom need to understand how generous we're being here. Amanda's friends keep asking why we let you two live here rent-free. It's embarrassing. I was 50 years old, standing there with a dish towel in my hand because I'd been cleaning up after their dinner party. Again. My wife Claire sat at the island, her fingers wrapped around a coffee mug, watching me with those sharp green eyes that had always seen through everyone's bullshit. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Rent-free, I repeated slowly. Yeah. Jake shifted his weight. Look, I get it. You hit a rough patch with the business transition and all, but Amanda and I have our own expenses now. The twins are expensive. We can't just keep subsidizing your lifestyle. Subsidizing my lifestyle. I felt something cold settle into my chest. Not anger, not yet. Just this crystalline clarity, like ice forming over still water. I set the dish towel down very carefully on the counter. Right, I said. Of course. Amanda appeared in the doorway, her yoga pants pristine, her blonde highlights catching the overhead lights. Jake, don't be harsh. We're family. She smiled at me, the kind of smile you'd give a dog you were about to drop off at the shelter. We just think it's time everyone pulled their weight around here. You understand? I understood perfectly. Claire set down her mug with a soft click. Tom, we should probably head back out. Let them enjoy their evening. Good idea, Amanda said brightly. Oh, and Tom? Before you go, can you make sure you pay the utility bill tomorrow? It's due, and we've been swamped. The utility bill, I said. Yeah, Jake set up the autopay through your account months ago, remember? It's just easier that way since you handle all the boring admin stuff anyway. She waved her hand dismissively. You're so good at that kind of thing. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. 28 years old, wearing a $70 t-shirt I'd probably paid for, standing in a house that was still legally mine, telling me how generous he was being. No problem, I said quietly. I'll take care of it. Claire and I walked out through the side door, across the small yard to the converted garage they called the guest house. It was nice enough. I'd renovated it myself 2 years ago, back when Jake said he wanted to bring the family closer together, back when I thought living near my kids would mean Sunday dinners and watching the twins grow up. The November air bit at my face. The house, the main house, glowed warm behind us. Through the windows, I could see Jake and Amanda already forgetting we existed, probably planning their next couple's trip to Napa. Inside our little space, Claire locked the door and turned to face me. He actually said that to you, she said. Not a question. He did. After everything, She stopped herself, shook her head. What are you thinking? I sat down on the small couch we'd moved in here, suddenly tired. Not physically tired, soul tired. The kind of tired that comes from realizing your children think you're a burden they're graciously tolerating. I'm thinking, I said slowly, about how many payments I've made this month alone. Claire pulled out her phone, started scrolling. She'd always been the organized one, the one who kept copies of everything. The mortgage on this property, their car insurance, both vehicles, Jake's business license renewal, Amanda's gym membership, the twins' daycare deposit for next month, Claire. She looked up. Did you know Jake told people he bought this house? Her eyes narrowed. What? 2 weeks ago, I ran into Dave Mitchell at the hardware store. Congratulated me on Jake's success buying such a nice property. Asked if I'd given him investment advice. We sat there in silence. Outside, the main house blazed with light. Every room lit up like a department store, running electricity I paid for through the account Jake had so conveniently linked months ago when he said it would simplify things. My phone buzzed. A text from my daughter, Emily. Hey, Dad, can you grab the twins from daycare tomorrow? I have a spin class at 3, and Amanda's got her book club. You're free, right? Thanks, XOXO. I showed it to Claire. She didn't smile. When was the last time she asked how you were doing? Can't remember. When was the last time either of them said thank you? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Drew a blank. Claire set her phone on the coffee table between us. On the screen was a spreadsheet she'd apparently been keeping. Color-coded, itemized. Every payment, every favor, every bill I'd covered while my kids told their friends how successful and independent they were. Tom, she said quietly, what if we just stopped? Stopped what? All of it. Everything. What if we just gave them exactly what they're asking for? She leaned forward. They want you to be grateful? Fine. Be grateful. Be so grateful you don't burden them with your help anymore. I looked at the spreadsheet. Looked at the total at the bottom, just for this month alone. Then I looked up at the main house, at my son and his wife moving past windows, at the life they were living, thinking they'd built it all themselves. Something shifted in my chest. That cold, clear feeling crystallized into something sharper. 1 week, I said. What? We give them 1 week without my help. No scheduling, no reminders, no payments I've been covering, no invisible support system propping up their perfect little life. Claire's expression changed. Not shock. She was too smart to be shocked by this. Something else. Something almost hungry. They'll fall apart. Maybe. They'll definitely fall apart, Tom. You handle everything. The insurance, the permits, Then they'll learn exactly who's been subsidizing whose lifestyle. We sat there as that settled between us. Outside, a car pulled up to the main house. Emily's husband, Derek, driving the Audi I'd co-signed for. He was probably coming from his startup, the one that had produced exactly nothing in 18 months while I quietly covered Emily's share of their expenses. Emily had said the same thing to Claire last week. I hadn't been there, but Claire had told me after, her voice tight with something I'd rarely heard from her. Contempt. You two really should contribute more if you're going to stay here long term, Emily had said, like she was being reasonable, like she was doing us a favor by pointing out our inadequacy. Derek and I have been talking, and we just think it sets a bad example for the twins, having their grandparents depend on their parents like this. Depend on their parents. The twins were 4 and 6. They didn't know their grandfather had been picking them up 3 days a week because their parents were too busy with Pilates and networking events. They didn't know their college funds had my name on the accounts. They didn't know the reason they had new bikes and fancy birthday parties was because I'd been covering the costs while Emily posted Instagram photos crediting her and Derek's hard work and sacrifice. I picked up my phone and opened my banking app. Looked at all the auto pays I'd set up over the past 2 years. Jake's mortgage, the utilities, the insurance payments, the business expenses, the gym memberships, the subscriptions. What are you doing? Claire asked. Making a list, I said, of everything I'm about to stop doing. She came over, sat next to me, looked at the screen. I felt her hand on my shoulder, steady and solid. This is going to get ugly, she warned. I know. They're going to be furious. I'm counting on it. They might not forgive you. I thought about that, about Jake's crossed arms and Amanda's condescending smile, about Emily's casual cruelty and Derek's entitled smirk, about the way they'd both rewritten history, turning my support into their achievement, my sacrifice into their success story. Claire, I said quietly, I don't think I care anymore. She didn't try to talk me out of it. That wasn't Claire's style. Instead, she pulled out her laptop and opened a new document. Then we need a plan, she said. A real one. If we're doing this, we do it right. We stayed up until 2 a.m, mapping it out. Every auto pay, every scheduled pickup, every quiet fix I'd been making behind the scenes, every little piece of invisible infrastructure that kept their lives running smooth while they congratulated themselves on their independence. Claire made notes in her precise handwriting, timelines, consequences, points of failure. The daycare has a 3-strike policy, she said. Late pickup without warning equals a strike. They don't know that, I said. I always made sure they never got close. The insurance on Jake's truck renews Thursday. If the payment doesn't go through, there's a 10-day grace period, but then no coverage, and he drives it every day for the construction materials. Emily's business permits expire next Monday. The renewal fee is $600, and the penalty for operating without valid permits is $2,000. Claire looked up at me. You've been keeping them from drowning, and they don't even know they're in the water. Not anymore, I said. We went through every item. Some things would hit immediately, the missed pickups, the bounced utility payments. Other things would take a few days to cascade. The real problems, the structural ones, would take the full week to manifest. By then, it would be too late for easy fixes. What about the house? Claire asked. The property itself? I pulled up the deed on my laptop. Still in my name. Had always been in my name. Jake had mentioned several times that we should transfer it over to make things official, but I'd been dragging my feet on that, some instinct telling me to wait. Thank God I'd waited. The property stays mine, I said. For now. They think they own it? Let them think what they want. Claire closed her laptop and looked at me. Really looked at me. Tom, be honest. What's the end game here? You want them to apologize? Realize what they've been taking for granted? I thought about that, about what I actually wanted from this, and I realized something cold and true. I didn't want their apology. An apology would mean they'd learned nothing. An apology would let them off the hook. I wanted them to feel it, really feel it, the weight of their own lives without someone catching them when they fell. I want them to understand, I said finally, exactly who's been supporting whom. Claire nodded slowly. Okay then, when do we start? I looked at the clock. 2:47 a.m. In a few hours, Jake would wake up expecting me to have paid that utility bill. Emily would send her daily text with some new favor to ask. Derek would probably swing by to borrow tools he'd never return. Amanda would smile her patient smile while mentally calculating how long they had to tolerate us before they could suggest we move somewhere cheaper. Business as usual, except it wouldn't be. Not anymore. We start now, I said, and opened my banking app. While you're here, hit the hype button, don't forget to subscribe and support this channel with a like. And tell us below, have you ever faced something like this? The first autopay I canceled was the utilities. Not out of spite, out of strategy. It would hit fast, but not catastrophically. Uncomfortable, but fixable. A warning shot. I sat there in the pre-dawn darkness, my finger hovering over the cancel automatic payment button, and felt nothing. No guilt, no hesitation, just that same cold clarity. Click, then the mortgage, the insurance, the gym memberships, the business accounts. One by one, I dismantled the invisible support system I'd built like a man defusing a bomb, except I was doing it in reverse, setting the timer instead of cutting the wire. Claire watched over my shoulder, occasionally pointing out things I'd missed, the streaming services, the meal kit delivery, the lawn care I'd arranged when Jake complained about not having time to mow. Done, I said finally, setting down my phone. How do you feel? Like I should have done this 6 months ago. We didn't sleep after that. Instead, we packed. Not everything. We weren't leaving yet. Just the important things. Documents, photos, Claire's jewelry, my tools, the good ones, the ones I'd inherited from my father. They'll notice these missing, Claire said, looking at the toolbox. They'll notice everything missing soon enough. At 7 a.m., my phone buzzed. Jake. Dad, the utility payment didn't go through. Can you check on that? I stared at the message, typed back, on it. Then I made coffee and sat down at our small kitchen table. Watched through the window as Jake left for his job site. Amanda loaded the twins into their SUV for school, completely unaware that the first domino had already fallen. Claire came out of the bedroom, dressed for the day. What's the plan? We wait. We watch. We say nothing. You're really going to make them ask? I'm not going to make them do anything. I'm just not going to do things for them anymore. She poured herself coffee, sat across from me. You know Emily's going to text you about picking up the twins. Probably. What are you going to say? Nothing. Claire raised an eyebrow. Nothing? I'm going to be busy, unavailable, out of service range. Whatever excuse works. But I'm not picking them up. The daycare will call them when you don't show. That's their problem to solve. We sat there drinking coffee while the main house emptied out. Amanda left with the twins. Jake was already gone. Through the thin walls, I could hear Emily and Derek moving around in the upstairs apartment they were renting. From me, technically, though they'd stopped paying rent 3 months ago when Derek's startup hit another temporary cash flow issue. At 2:45 p.m., Emily's text arrived right on schedule. Dad, daycare pickup at 3. Can you grab both kids? Derek has a pitch meeting and I'm at Soul Cycle. You're the best, I showed Claire. What are you going to do? I turned off my phone and put it in a drawer. Problem solved, I said. Claire laughed. Actually laughed. A sound I hadn't heard from her in months. Thomas Mitchell, you're becoming a very bad man. Just getting started. At 3:15, my phone started buzzing in the drawer. We ignored it. At 3:30, the buzzing became continuous. At 3:45, we heard a car screech into the driveway, door slamming, Emily's voice shrill with panic. Dad! Dad! Where are you? I stayed seated at the kitchen table. Claire raised her eyebrows at me but said nothing. The pounding on our door started. Dad! Open up! I know you're in there. I took a sip of coffee. Let her knock. Let her panic. Let her feel, for just a few minutes, what it was like when the invisible safety net suddenly disappeared. Finally, Claire got up and opened the door. Emily burst in, her face flushed, hair messy from obviously rushing out of her class. Where were you? Daycare called me 7 times. They said you never showed up. I was here, I said calmly. I texted you? I know. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You knew? And you just didn't go? I was busy. Busy? Dad, I needed you to pick up the kids. You needed me, I repeated slowly. Interesting choice of words. What? Nothing? Did you get the twins okay? Yes, but they almost charged me a late fee. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was? The teachers were giving me these looks like I'm some kind of neglectful parent. I almost laughed. Almost. That must have been hard for you. It was. And Derek had to miss his meeting to come with me because I was freaking out. This could have cost him a major investment opportunity. I'm sure Derek's imaginary investors will understand. Emily's face went red. What is wrong with you today? Nothing's wrong. I'm just not available to pick up your kids anymore. Silence. Actual silence. I watched Emily's brain try to process what I'd just said. Not available? What do you mean not available? I mean, I said, setting down my coffee cup carefully, that I have my own life to live, my own schedule to keep. I can't just drop everything every time you need something. But you always. I always did, I interrupted. Past tense, things change. Is this because of what Jake said? Because Dad, he didn't mean... Jake meant exactly what he said. You all did. And I heard you. Loud and clear. You're all doing us such a huge favor letting us stay here. Subsidizing our lifestyle. Setting a good example for the twins by being so generous. Emily had the decency to look uncomfortable. We're just trying to be honest about the situation. So am I. Honestly, I'm tired. And I'm done. Done with what? All of it. She looked at Claire for support, but Claire just sipped her coffee and looked out the window like this was the most boring conversation she'd ever witnessed. Mom? Don't look at me, Claire said pleasantly. I agree with your father. But what about the twins? What am I supposed to do about pickups? Figure it out, I said. You're a grown woman. You'll manage. Emily opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I can't believe you're being so selfish. And there it was, the word I'd been waiting for. Selfish, I repeated. That's an interesting take. You know how busy I am. You know Derek's business is at a critical stage. Derek doesn't have a business. Derek has a hobby that loses money while you work part-time selling essential oils on Instagram, and I cover the difference in your expenses. Her face went white. That's not fair. Fair? Let's talk about fair, Emily. Let's talk about the $1,500 I transferred to your account last month, the $2,000 the month before, the $3,600 in emergency expenses you've hit me up for since July. Those were loans. Loans you've never paid back. Loans you've never even mentioned paying back. Loans that somehow turned into just another thing Dad handles because it's easier than admitting you can't actually afford your lifestyle. Emily's eyes filled with tears. The same trick that had worked on me since she was 6 years old. Not this time. I can't believe you're throwing money in my face, she said, voice trembling. I'm not throwing anything. I'm just stating facts. Facts you seem to have forgotten while you were explaining to your mother how we need to contribute more. I was just trying to be helpful. No, Emily, you were trying to feel superior. There's a difference. She stood there, tears running down her face, looking between me and Claire like we were strangers. Maybe we were. Maybe she'd never actually known us at all, just known what we could do for her. Fine, she finally said. Fine. If that's how you want to be, then fine. We don't need your help anyway. Great, I said. Then we're all good. She stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Through the window, I watched her cross the yard, shoulders shaking, phone already pressed to her ear. Probably calling Jake. Probably crying about how mean and selfish we were being. Claire got up and locked the door behind her. That was brutal, she said. That was necessary. The utility company will shut everything off tomorrow if Jake doesn't pay. I know. And Emily's business permits expire Monday, I remember. Claire came back to the table, but she didn't sit, just stood there looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Tom, are you sure about this? Because once they really start falling apart, there's no putting it back together. Look at that house, I said, gesturing toward the main building. Look at the cars in the driveway, the fancy bicycles on the porch, the landscaping that costs $300 a month to maintain. Look at all of it and tell me, who do you think paid for that life? You did. And who do they think paid for it? Claire didn't answer. She didn't need to. They think they did it themselves, I said quietly. They think they're successful, independent adults who graciously allow their struggling parents to live in the guest house out of the goodness of their hearts. They've rewritten the whole story in their heads until they're the heroes and we're the charity cases. So you're going to show them the truth? No, I said. I'm going to let the truth show itself. I'm just going to stop hiding it from them. My phone buzzed again in the drawer, then Claire's phone, then mine again. The emergency backup phone Emily didn't know about started ringing. We ignored them all. At 7 p.m., Jake came home. I watched him park his truck, gather his things, walk into the house. 5 minutes later, he was pounding on our door. Dad, open up. I didn't move. Dad, I know you're in there. The utility company sent a final notice. What the hell is going on? Claire looked at me. Are you going to answer? Eventually. Jake kept pounding. This is ridiculous. We need to talk about this. I finished my dinner, leftover pasta Claire had made. Took my time, let Jake's knocking get more frantic, let him feel what it was like to need something and have it denied. Finally, I got up and opened the door. Jake stood there, face flushed, paper in his hand. The utility disconnect notice. What is this? Looks like a disconnect notice. I know what it is. Why didn't you pay it? Why didn't you? He stared at me. What? You heard me. It's your house, isn't it? Your utilities, your responsibility. Why didn't you pay it? Because the autopay was set up through your account. Was, I said. Past tense. I canceled it this morning. The color drained from Jake's face. You canceled it. Why would you cancel it? Because I'm tired of paying your bills while you tell people you're doing me a favor. Dad, I never... Dave Mitchell, I said. Hardware store, 2 weeks ago. He congratulated me on my successful son who bought such a nice house. Bought it, Jake. With his own money, his own success, no help from dear old Dad. Jake had the grace to look ashamed. For about 5 seconds. Then the defensiveness kicked in. So this is what punishment? You're going to let them shut off our power because of some misunderstanding? Not a misunderstanding. A lie. You lied to people about buying this house. You lied about your independence. You lied about supporting us. I didn't lie. I just didn't correct their assumptions. That's called lying, Jake. Fine. He threw his hands up. Fine, I'm sorry. Is that what you want to hear? I'm sorry I didn't give you proper credit. Now can you please pay the utility bill before they shut everything off? No. That one word hung in the air between us like a physical thing. No? Jake repeated slowly. You're seriously saying no? That's what I'm saying. Dad, we have kids in that house. We can't have the power shut off. Then I suggest you call the utility company and make a payment. I don't have that kind of cash sitting around right now. Then I suggest you figure it out. That's what adults do. Jake's face went from red to purple. I'd seen that look before. Right before he got into fights in high school, right before he said things he'd regret later. But I wasn't his high school principal or his football coach. I was his father, and I was done cushioning his falls. You're being a real bastard right now, he said quietly. Maybe, I agreed. Or maybe I'm just being realistic about our situation. You said it yourself. I need to contribute more, right? Stop being a burden? Well, the best way I can think to contribute is to stop enabling your complete inability to manage your own life. Enabling? Are you serious right now? He stood there, breathing hard, the disconnect notice crumpling in his fist. Fine. We'll pay our own bills from now on. All of them. We don't need your help. Perfect, I said. Then we're on the same page. He started to walk away, then turned back. You know what? Amanda was right about you. She said you had this whole martyr complex, always doing things for us so you could hold it over our heads later. I defended you. I said you weren't like that. And now? Now I think maybe she was right all along. He stormed off. I closed the door and went back to the table where Claire was pretending to read a book. That went well, she said dryly. Better than expected. He called you a bastard. He called me enabling first. I'll take bastard as a step up. She looked at me over her book. Are you okay? Really? I thought about it, about the cold feeling in my chest, about watching my son look at me with something close to hate, about the systematic destruction of relationships I'd spent decades building. Yeah, I said, I actually am. And the scary thing was, I meant it. The papers were signed by 3 p.m., notarized, recorded, official. Jake and Emily had 30 days to find new places to live. The ownership dispute was withdrawn. Everyone went back to their corners. Except it wasn't really over. Not yet. Claire and I went back to the guest house while Rob left to file the paperwork downtown. Through the window, I could see Jake and Amanda in the main house kitchen. Arguing, probably. About money, about where they'd move, about how they'd explain this to their friends. "You won," Claire said. "Why don't you look happy?" "Do I look unhappy?" "You look numb." She wasn't wrong. I sat down at our little table and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, no relief. Just an empty space where something used to be. My phone buzzed, a text from Emily. "I hope you're happy now. You destroyed your own family." I showed Claire. She sighed. "Are you going to respond?" "No. What's the point?" But the messages kept coming. From Emily, then Jake, then Amanda. A flood of recrimination and blame. All the things they couldn't say during the mediated meeting, all pouring out now in text form. I turned off my phone. "Tom," Claire said carefully, "I need to ask you something." "Okay." "Are you sure this was worth it?" I looked at her. "Are you having second thoughts?" "No. I just want to make sure you're not." I thought about it. About the last week, about watching my kids unravel, about the systematic destruction of relationships I'd spent decades building, about the cold satisfaction that had carried me this far suddenly feeling less certain. "I don't know," I admitted. "Ask me in a year." We might not be talking to them in a year. I know. We sat there in the growing darkness, not turning on lights, just sitting. Outside, the main house was all lit up. I could see Jake packing boxes in the living room, see Amanda on her phone, probably calling her father about legal options, see Emily and Derek's apartment going dark early. Friday night used to be family dinner night. We'd all gather around that big table in the kitchen, the twins chattering about their week, Jake grilling steaks, Emily making her famous potato salad. Claire and I would bring wine and dessert, and we'd laugh and talk and pretend everything was perfect. That felt like another lifetime. At 8 p.m., there was a soft knock on the door. Not pounding, not demanding, just a quiet tap. Montana was cold. Claire was right about that. We'd bought a small cabin outside of Whitefish, 3 hours from anyone who knew us, surrounded by mountains and snow and silence. It should have felt like peace. A fresh start, new chapter, all that inspirational poster nonsense. Instead, it felt like exile. We'd been there 2 weeks when Claire's phone rang. She looked at the screen, then at me. "It's Emily." "Don't answer." "Tom, we said we were done. Answering now just starts the cycle again." She let it go to voicemail. 10 minutes later, it rang again and again. By the 5th call, Claire was pacing. "Something's wrong," she said. "Emily doesn't call like this unless something's really wrong." Her definition of really wrong is probably, "I ran out of essential oils." "Tom," I sighed. "Fine, answer it." But on speaker, Claire answered. "Emily?" "Mom!" "Oh my God, finally!" Emily's voice was high, frantic. "I've been trying to reach you for hours." "We've been busy. What's wrong?" "It's Derek. He left." Claire and I looked at each other. "Left?" "Took all the money from our joint account and just left. Said he couldn't handle the stress anymore. Said he was moving back to California to find himself or some bullshit." "Mom, I have nothing. The rent is due in 3 days and I have $47 in my personal account. I'm sorry, honey. I need help. I know things are bad between us and Dad, but I'm desperate. Please, just a loan. Just enough to make rent and get the twins back in daycare. I'll pay you back, I swear." I shook my head at Claire. She saw it, her expression torn. "Emily, we can't." "What? Mom, I'm your daughter." "And we're done being your safety net." "But I'll be homeless. The twins will be homeless." "Then you need to figure something out. Call a friend, get a real job, move somewhere cheaper, but we're not solving this for you." "I can't believe you. Dad brainwashed you. He turned you against your own children." "No," Claire said quietly. "Your father showed me who you'd become, and I don't like it very much." She hung up, stood there shaking, phone still in her hand. "That was the hardest thing I've ever done," she whispered. "I know." She really is desperate, Tom. Derek leaving, that's real. Derek leaving is Derek showing his true colors. Emily picked him, married him, built her life around him. Those were her choices. But the twins will be fine. Emily will figure it out because she has to. That's how growth works. Claire sat down hard on our couch. What if she doesn't? What if she really does end up homeless? She won't. She'll move in with a friend or take a real job or do whatever it takes, but she'll survive. You sound so sure. I am sure, because she's my daughter, and underneath all the entitlement and Instagram nonsense, she's got steel in her. She just needs a reason to find it. 2 days later, Jake called. Same story, different crisis. Business was failing, Amanda was talking divorce, he was drowning. I didn't answer. Let it go to voicemail. Deleted it without listening. You're getting good at this, Claire observed. At what? Letting go. Had good practice. But it wasn't that simple. Every night I lay awake thinking about them. About Jake struggling with his business. About Emily alone with the twins. About what kind of father walks away when his children are drowning. Then I'd remember the grateful comment. Remember Amanda's cold calculations. Remember Emily's casual cruelty. Remember all of it, and the guilt would fade back to that cold certainty. They'd survive. They'd have to. 3 weeks in Montana turned into 6. The snow piled up outside our cabin. We read books and watched old movies and pretended we were happy with our isolated peace. We weren't. Tom, Claire said one night, we need to talk. Okay. I hate this. Montana? All of it. The silence, the distance, the running away. We said we were walking away, but this feels like running. What do you want to do? I don't know, but this isn't sustainable. We can't just hide up here forever pretending our kids don't exist. What's the alternative? Go back? Rebuild? Maybe. Or maybe something in between. I don't know, Tom. I just know I can't keep waking up every day feeling like we abandoned our family. They abandoned us first. Does that make it better? I didn't have an answer for that. The next morning, I did something I'd been avoiding. I checked social media, looked up Jake and Emily, see what they'd been posting. Jake's feed was mostly dark. A few posts about jobs completed, some photos of the twins, nothing personal. Reading between the lines, he was working constantly, probably trying to keep his business afloat. Emily's was more active. Posts about tough times and finding strength and grateful for true friends. Lots of comments from her essential oil downline offering support. No mention of Derek, no mention of us. Then I saw a post from 3 days ago that stopped me cold. Sometimes you learn who your real family is when times get hard. Spoiler. It's not always the people you share DNA with. Thank you to everyone who's been there for me and my babies when the people who should have cared the most just didn't. There was a photo attached. Emily and the twins, all smiling at the camera, looking happy and resilient. The twins were wearing new clothes. Emily looked tired, but determined. She was surviving, just like I'd said she would. So why did it feel like losing? I showed Claire. She read it, then looked at me with those sharp green eyes that had always seen too much. You're proud of her, she said. What? Don't lie to me, Tom. I can see it on your face. You're proud that she's figuring it out. I'm not. You are. You wanted her to struggle so she'd get stronger, and now she is, and you're proud. But you're also hurt because she's doing it without you. She was right. Damn her, she was always right. This whole thing, I said slowly, was supposed to teach them a lesson, make them understand what they'd taken for granted. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about lessons and started being about revenge? Survival. Claire sat down next to me. Tom, I'm going to say something, and I need you to really hear it. Okay. You won. You proved your point. They understand now. Jake and Emily both get it. They know they were wrong. They know they took advantage. They know they can't just coast on your support forever. The lesson is learned. But you're still punishing them. Still withholding forgiveness. Still acting like they're enemies instead of your kids who made mistakes. They weren't mistakes, Claire. They were choices. Years of choices. So were yours. You chose to enable them, to cover for them, to let them believe things that weren't true. Then you chose to pull it all away at once instead of having honest conversations. Everyone made choices here. Everyone's at fault. I wanted to argue, wanted to point out all the ways I'd tried to talk to them, all the times I'd been dismissed or ignored, but she wasn't wrong. What do you want me to do? I asked. I want you to decide if you want to be right or if you want to be their father. I can't be both? Not anymore, not after this. We sat there in our Montana cabin, surrounded by snow and silence and the wreckage of relationships we'd blown up. And for the first time since this whole thing started, I felt the certainty crack. Maybe Claire was right. Maybe I'd won the battle, but lost something more important in the process. Or maybe I was just tired of being angry. What would rebuilding even look like? I asked. I don't know, but it starts with reaching out. They'll think I'm weak, think they won. Let them think what they want. You know the truth? I thought about that, about calling Jake, about texting Emily, about tentatively rebuilding bridges I'd spent months burning, about whether I even wanted to. My phone buzzed, a text from a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Mitchell? This is Mason's teacher from Jefferson Elementary. I'm reaching out because Mason has been struggling lately. His grandmother was listed as an emergency contact, but we've been unable to reach her at the number provided. Is there another way we can contact you or Mrs. Mitchell? Mason, Jake's older son, 6 years old, struggling. I showed Claire the text. That's it, she said quietly. That's the decision point. You can ignore it and stay consistent with your boundaries, or you can respond and crack the door back open. I stared at the text, at my grandson's name, at the word struggling, at the choice I knew I was going to make but wished I didn't have to. If I respond, I said, everything changes. I know. They'll think they can come running to me every time there's a problem. Maybe at first, or maybe they've learned enough to be more careful this time. And if they haven't? Claire took my hand. Then you'll deal with it. Set boundaries. Make rules. But you'll do it while still being in their lives instead of hiding in Montana pretending you don't care. I do care, I admitted. That's the problem. I thought pulling away would make me care less. It didn't. Of course it didn't. They're your kids, our grandkids. Love doesn't turn off just because you're angry. I looked at the text again. Thought about Mason struggling in school, probably confused about why his grandfather disappeared, why his family was falling apart, why everything changed so suddenly. None of this was his fault. He was just collateral damage in a war between adults who should have known better. I typed out a response. This is Tom Mitchell. What does Mason need? The response came back almost immediately. Could we schedule a conference? Mason's mentioned that his home situation has been difficult lately. We just want to make sure he has the support he needs. I showed Claire. Well, she said, I guess we're going to a parent-teacher conference. Grandparent-teacher conference. Even worse. But I agreed to the meeting anyway. Set it up for next week, which meant flying back, which meant seeing Jake, which meant everything. Claire started packing that night. We were always going back, she said. You know that, right? This Montana thing was just a pause, not a solution. I know. Are you scared? Terrified. Good. That means you still care. We flew back 3 days later, landed in a city that felt foreign now, drove to an elementary school where my grandson was struggling, walked into a classroom that smelled like crayons and guilt. Mason's teacher was young, earnest, clearly uncomfortable. Thank you so much for coming. I wasn't sure if I'd show up. Well, it's complicated, I understand. It's really not. What does Mason need? She pulled out work samples, explained that he'd been withdrawn lately, not participating, his grades slipping. He mentioned that you used to pick him up from school sometimes, that you'd help with homework. I did. He misses that. I think he's feeling abandoned, maybe? I don't mean to overstep. You're not overstepping. You're being honest. What can I do to help? We talked for an hour, worked out a plan where I'd check in weekly, help with homework when Jake couldn't, provide some stability while the family situation settled. Does Jake know you're doing this? The teacher asked. Not yet. He might not be happy about it. Probably not. But Mason's welfare is more important than Jake's pride. She smiled. You sound like a good grandfather. I sound like a grandfather who learned some hard lessons lately. After the meeting, I sat in my rental car outside the school and pulled out my phone, stared at Jake's number for 5 minutes before finally calling. He answered on the 4th ring. Dad? I'm in town. Silence. Then, why? Mason's teacher called. Set up a conference. I went. More silence. Then, you came back for Mason. I came back to help Mason, yeah. Not to see me? Not to talk about everything? Do you want me to see you? Want to talk about everything? The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. Finally, yeah, I do. Okay, I said. Where? Coffee place on Maple. The one where we used to go when I was in high school. I remember it. 30 minutes? I'll be there. I hung up and sat there, engine idling, heart pounding like I was about to walk into an ambush. Maybe I was, but I went anyway.